Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of PEPTalk podcast. I'm Andrea Anderson.
And I'm Barbara Hemphill.
And we are so excited, maybe too excited, to share this really important topic with you guys today. As you will see on our screen, the topic is the landfill or your life. And we have had a lot of interest in this topic since we came up with the name. And I have to share that here. Let me remove the title so we can come on screen and just be here with you guys and just have a conversation. So, as Barbara knows, I was working with a client last week, and she was going through what a lot of you that are tuning in may be experiencing as well, a lot of guilt over a lot of paper, a lot of things that, just were taking a lot of time, a lot of energy, and I'll get into more of that in a few minutes. But kind of like the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire show, where you get to call a friend or you have a lifeline. I called Barbara. I was working with this client, and I called Barbara, and I was like, Barbara, there's so much. And I want to just be clear that this person is not alone in this. This is a huge problem. This is Barbara's life's work for the last 40 plus years.
Well, Andrea, let me just interrupt here and say it's so ironic because I hadn't even thought of this until just this now. But one of my very first clients, which would have been 40 years ago in Washington, D.C., was a national association. And I was there to do what we now call a productive environment day, which is an event in which employees clear the clutter from the office. And the reason I was there was that there was a room that the employees called the gloom and doom room. And that's where they used to put postponed decisions. So it was primarily when an employee would leave and nobody wanted to go through the old employees' files, but everybody was scared to throw it away. So they stuck it in this room. And they'd been doing that for years, but they didn't have proper shelving. And one day, all the boxes came cascading down, and the fire inspector found it. And they called me and said, would you come and clean this up? And I said, I will, but only under one condition. And the administrator said, what's that? And I said that we figure out why this happened and how to stop it. I'd never done anything like this in my life. I had no idea. I just was coming out of residential organizing at this point. I was brand new. Nobody was doing this. So we decided we needed to clear the clutter. And so we created a day where everybody dressed down. And this is back when in Washington, D.C., everybody dressed in suits and ties, except on Friday. Friday was casual day. And so we did this but the executive director came in blue jeans, and no one had ever seen him in blue jeans before. At any rate, we did this, but here was the comment. We had these huge, I don't even know, they were recycling bins. They weren't shredding bins. I can't even remember, but they were these huge, huge bins. And people would walk by and they would say, oh, we were dumping files, just thousands and thousands of files. And they were saying, oh, look at all the trees we're killing. And I said, the trees were killed a long time ago. And now they're killing your life because they're in the files, and the files are killing your life. So that's the title, The Landfill of Your Life.
Exactly. And that's exactly that's what I thought I would hear from you, but I was like, let me just call Barbara and see what she says about this, because I have to give the example of how we started with this project, because this person wanted to be extremely responsible with the environment, like extremely. And there were hundreds of boxes of paper. Okay. We started day one and we got through 10. Because we were trying to be responsible, and we were going to shred everything for the environment. And so the shredding company said we had to take off all the binder clips and all of the paper clips. And we were looking at the mounds of boxes and the time that it took just to do those few. And we were like, okay, we have to be realistic here. We're not going to get through this in the time that we have set. So I was like, let's just, anyway, so I called Barbara. I was like, what do you think? She's basically, you said that. You said, it's time to go. It's okay. And that's what we needed. We needed permission that it was okay. And we weren't being irresponsible by taking these items to a landfill. And there were other issues involved, and there were privacy concerns and things like that. So we kind of processed through that. We talked about that. But what I want to be clear about here, and I'm going to show you some pictures of what this looked like. And some of you may be like, oh my God, that's a lot. And other people might be like, oh wow, I'm not alone. There are other people that are dealing with this as well. But I think the message we want to come away with, and Barbara, it goes back to what you just said when you said, I want to know how this started, how this happened, and what can we do to stop it. That is the very first thing that we talk to our clients about. We say the very first action in our office transformation bootcamp is to stop the problem. If we continue on doing things the way we've always done it, the paper mounds and boxes are going to grow, and they're literally killing you. I mean, stifling your life. If you can't go spend time with friends or go on a vacation because you think, who am I to go out and do fun things when I have all this stuff I should be doing? I should be going through these boxes and getting rid of them. And that's what was happening in this situation. And so literally this person could have spent the next 20 years doing the same, feeling the same way, or let the landfill take a temporary hit, stop the problem, and get back to living. And that's why, in fact, that's where the title of this talk came. I called Barbara. Barbara, you said, let it go. It's time for her to live her life. And that was the permission we needed. So I came back and I said, next week's podcast title is The Landfill or Your Life. And that is what we want you guys to hear. We're not advocating for damaging the environment or anything like that, but stopping the problem so it doesn't continue to get worse down the road and cost you your life in the process. And we're not being dramatic here. I don't want you guys to think we're being dramatic. This is killing people. This is literally suffocating people where they're not living their lives for 10, 20 years at a time because of the clutter.
Well, there are stories. There's a famous story of the Holt brothers, which happened in New York City years ago, where they literally physically died in their clutter. I had one of my early clients that I was referred to actually by a psychiatrist. And the psychiatrist said, this is literally killing him. And so actually I went with the psychiatrist and the U-Haul or the U-Hauls and the things like that to get rid of things. And so it's not as unusual as you might think. I think that we've often said that most people, there's far more people struggle with paper than don't. In spite of all the promises of the paperless office, there are more organizations and more individuals that do. Yeah. And we're talking about extreme situations now, but the issue is if you don't stop it, it becomes extreme. Yeah. And the real question is what it does to your life. And perhaps here's another important thing. We are often more willing to be responsible to other people than we are ourselves. So the question becomes, if you were to leave this earth tonight, who's going to be left with what you've left behind?
And that was the deciding factor for this particular person when she, realized like, oh yeah, well, if I'm not here, they're not going to care about this stuff. They're not going to go through it and meticulously pull out what's important. And the other thing I want to point out is this situation wasn't like that where it wasn't a hoarding situation. It is actually a very organized person. And the family members who left this, who were no longer here with us on this earth, they were very organized. It was not a hoarding situation. They were extremely meticulous and extremely organized. It was just the volume of it. And no one had permission to throw it away. No one had permission to get rid of it. And I just want to commend this person for taking action. She reached out to us And it was just, I'm just so proud of this person for what she did. So I'm going to share some pictures and then we can kind of talk through it. These are just some of the pictures of when we started the process. And oh wait, I got to click the link over here. And of what she was dealing with. Now, this house was vacant. This wasn't a house she lived in. This house had been vacant, but all of the stuff had gotten left there through the years, and the boxes were just some full of paper, some half full of paper, and just kind of in disarray in every room in the house. There were multiple rooms in the house with just stuff. And this is an organized version of, it's part of the amount of boxes that we went through. And it was really important for this person to go through everything. I mean, really, she went through all of it. And let me move this banner off of here real quick so you can see. She wanted to make decisions about what was kept. And so she had the time and the space, and she honored her family members who had done all of this work. And so it wasn't an easy process. It wasn't haphazard. We didn't force her to get rid of anything. It was just, she just needed help. She needed somebody, standing by and guiding the process and giving her permission. And so we organized a lot of the boxes, and then eventually we're able to get rid of many, many, many. There are still some to do. I redacted anything that was identifying out of here. That's why I like this. It's a really cool system. And so the living room, again, this is a vacant house. In its day, it was built in 1935. It was a beautiful home, but it's been vacant for many years. But we at least were able to get the boxes, combined into one room, and then went through. There are about 150 boxes. It doesn't look like it in this picture. There's about 150 boxes on this trailer, and plus these bags. And this person had took the time to go through and pull out things that were important, but other things that she was willing to let go because she literally was killing herself with all of the stress, the anxiety, the guilt, and everything that comes along with keeping all of that stuff. And so I just want to say, like I said, when I called Barbara, when we realized after the day one that it was going to take us way too long and we would not get through this project if we were trying to be so uber responsible and taking off all the metal and then taking it to be shredded or shred, it was like it wasn't going to work. And so to be able to have permission to say it's okay to do a big overhaul, let it go to the landfill. And in that process, because we cleared that out and organized what was left, it at least created enough mental space and order that appliances went next. Electric, like there were old printers and appliances in the house. They were able to be taken, and they were, taken to be recycled. So what I want to say, when we were talking about doing this, Barbara, my fear was, oh my gosh, the environmentalists are going to come after us. So I just want to be clear that what we're advocating for is to help you stop the problem going forward. Take temporary action, even if it means sending things to the landfill. And then going forward, you will be so responsible and using so much less paper. And what you do keep, you'll be able to find what you need when you need it. So, Barbara.
Well, I think it's interesting. I thought of a little example. So, through the years, this process has evolved. And when I very first started, one of the first things I did was kitchens. And one of the things you found in kitchens were drawers of coupons.
Yes.
And I remember it, and I said then that I wish they would just discontinue the coupons and just charge less for the food, because people spent so much time and there was so much guilt over having them and not using them and then not remembering them. And they'd even take them to the store and then they'd forget and they'd put them in the car. And so one of the rules we made was that until we got everything organized once, okay, and so until, we didn't use the term then, but until it became a productive environment. So our goal with all of our clients, with the world, is to make it a productive environment, an intentional setting. in which everyone can accomplish their work and enjoy their lives. And ultimately, it enables others to do it as well, because all the time we talk about clients where it's the family, it's the colleagues, it's the other people that are suffering as well. So I would make a pact with my client that while we were working together, first of all, we threw away all the coupons that were expired and stopped using them just temporarily until we got everything under control. Then we can go back up and set a system. And Andrea, you and I looked at this article that came out of the paper industry called Throw That Paper in the Trash, talking about how throwing things in the landfill is not as bad as you think it is, and that there's a lot of different angles to the recycling and shredding and things that we thought were good. It's like, well, there's some other sides to it too, and it's too complicated for us to go into all of it. But it does emphasize what will you do? So you have to come up with a system that you feel comfortable with, and nobody's going to have the same thing. I mean, my stepdaughter graduated with a degree in the environment. She's very environmentally conscious. And so we take steps, like when we go on vacation, the family looks at things. Again, the word that comes up here is intentional. Postponed decisions are never intentional. So the reason these piles have piled up because there isn't any intentionality behind it. And that's what's important. That's figuring out what you will do. But if you do nothing, you're not only damaging the environment. I mean, look, here's an empty house sitting full of postponed decisions. We're not only we're damaging the environment, we're endangering our lives, we're endangering the world. And so it's about being intentional. And the ultimate thing, the whole reason we're so passionate about this, and I couldn't be more passionate as I get older, I'm seeing how critical it is because it's piling up and piling up. And here's the thing that's interesting. You know how often the pendulum is too far to the right or too far in the opposite direction? So we see that now, right? Because my generation, we kept everything for our children and our grandchildren. Now we're finding that our children and our grandchildren don't want it. And not only that, but our children and our grandchildren have watched how we have invested so much in this stuff. And so guess what? The pendulum has swung exactly the opposite. And now many of them are not keeping anything. And I guarantee you down the road, they will regret it. They will regret that they don't have anything, which is why Productive Environment Institute is about not paperless, but less paper. And it's about putting systems in place. Why are we keeping this? And how can we leave it so that other people really have a life?
Yeah.
So someone said, just put in the message, how do you emotionally deal with 40 years of books? What a great, great question. And books are, in fact, one of the most difficult. And there is no right answer. I cannot say this is what you should do. And there isn't a should for anyone. But we have to think through your process and acknowledge that it is dealing with the emotion. So if you are living in a house, and I had a client not long ago who lived in a huge mansion in another state, had an apartment in New York, decided she was getting rid of the place, the big house, and had thousands, literally thousands and thousands of books that she had to get rid of. It was emotionally extremely difficult. The word, however, is to go through the emotion. We don't change anything unless we go through emotion. And if we're not experiencing discomfort then we're not learning. We don't grow until we are willing to go through it. And that's why we do the Together We Are Better. You cannot do this alone. I remember so clearly and with such great joy that when my mother died, my mother was very organized, so we didn't have a lot, but she worked at a jewelry store. So she had a lot of jewelry. It was costume jewelry, nice costume jewelry, not worth lots of money. And I needed to go through it, and I didn't want it all. And a friend of mine had said, Barbara, would you like me to come and sit with you? And I'm thinking, oh no, I don't want to be a bother. Oh no, you're too busy. Oh, I don't want to bother you. I don't. And then I thought, wait a minute. And so she came out and she just sat with me as we went through the jewelry. And it turned out to be such a blessed experience because she knew my mother. And so then I could share with it. So I still let it go. We donated it. But it was helpful. So I would say with the books, there isn't any one answer. I mean, there's a whole bunch of them. And this is where one of the things that PEI offers that you can do is you can schedule a call with someone to get you on the right track. We'll do a discovery session, and that discovery session isn't to give you the answers, it's to ask the question so you can answer it. Only you can answer the question, how do I emotionally deal with 40 years of books? It doesn't have one right answer. There are lots of options. And many times we know people that can help. For example, I mentioned jewelry. We have one of our CPSs who's a specialist in dealing with expensive things and trying to get rid of them. So we will help put you in the right place. But if you just walk into that place and all those books and say, oh, I'm going to organize them these days, it's not going to happen. Yeah. One thing I can tell you that helps in many cases is if you're downsizing, for example, instead of saying, let's say you're getting ready to downsize and you're downsizing everything, your jewelry and your books and your papers and all those kind of things. And you're saying, okay, what don't I have to take? Reverse it. Go in and say, all right, what is it that I must take in order for me to accomplish my work and enjoy my life? What are the things? I did that in my own life once, and I'll tell you a very personal story, but I hope it's helpful. It was early in my marriage, and it was not going well. And I realized that many of my clients who were women that I said had golden handcuffs, they were in a situation where we were living I was living in a beautiful home. We just moved into this gorgeous house, and but I was miserable. We were miserable. And I thought, this gorgeous house is not worth it. And I literally walked around the house and I said, if I leave this marriage, what do I want? What do I have to take with me? It was my piano, a set of china from my parents from college graduation, and my office. Going through that process helped me because I realized I was no longer a prisoner. I had made a decision. 37 years, I'm happily married, and it works beautifully. So go to look at those books and say, what are the books I really must take? And then figure out how much space, like in the space you're moving to, how many bookshelves do you have? And then do that. So look at what you must take first, and then look at the other things. Because if you just try to do it by saying, what can I let go of? Another thing to think about is instead of I'm giving this away, think of it as I am blessing someone. Mm-hmm. Every time you pass things on to other people, you are a blessing. There's an agency in my area where they take all kinds of donations. They even get money for the things that go to the landfill from a company. I don't know how that, or it goes to recycling, I guess. I don't even know how it works. All I know is they send overseas whatever they can send overseas. They sell what they can sell. Whatever they can't do with goes in this big dumpster, and then this company comes up and they pay them so much a pound. So everything gets used. Mm-hmm. Not everybody has that advantage, but there are many things where you are of people that can help. And so finding ways that you can let go of it, but you will have to go through the emotion. There is no
you do. And you you won't, I don't want to say you can't do it. Most people can't do it alone. And our experience shows that you won't do it alone because you can't. And in fact, in this particular case, this client had 2 employees. Well, one of my first questions before we went to the project was, is there anyone that can help you? Is there any family? And she had some family, but she didn't want them to come over and see the disarray. So there was the guilt aspect, the shame aspect. And so she didn't want anybody to see. So that was not going to work. Then she had 2 employees who were there and available to assist. And they were like, we could have done this, years ago, but they couldn't. They could not have done it years ago because she needed to be the one to make the decisions. They, in their mind, we can just come in and take everything out and put it in the trailer and take it. That is not at all what happened. And if anybody is watching this and you're feeling that like, oh my God, I can't have somebody just come in and take everything out. I mean, you could do that. You could hire, 2 men in a truck, or what's the college hunks, Holland junk, whatever. But it doesn't work that way. You are the decision maker. And that's one of the things that I think when people just say, oh, well, just get rid of it. Just get a truck, get a trailer. It is not easy to do that. And that's what our team does. That's what our certified productive environment specialists do. And we absolutely love it. So the people that I don't do a lot of the hands-on things anymore. I do a lot of the training. I'm virtual, this is my workspace. But I absolutely loved this project. And I did 2 other projects while I was away as well. And so if you are somebody that thinks, oh my God, I would love to do that. Again, it's not just going in and taking the things out and putting them in a truck and taking them away. It's processing the emotions. Lee, you had asked about the books, how to emotionally deal with 40 years of books. So this person had 8 decades of stuff. And there were a lot of emotions tied to it. There were emotions with the family business. There were emotions with the family. And so we walked through it. She processed and she said little prayers over certain things. And we took pictures of certain things and then took out certain things and kept, but then released it. And we actually, because the house was built in 1935, Demetrius was with us. He's one of our associates, and he was helping with this project. And he went and turned on the radio to an oldies station. So while we were working with these decades-old records, we're hearing Frank Sinatra and old music, and it was just really neat. It was a really, really neat process. So I encourage you to do that. Set it up so that you can have an enjoyable feeling while you're doing it. But I want you to know that if you're sitting there watching this and you're feeling guilty because you should be able to do it on your own, I want to release you from that, because most people can't. And there is help. There is hope. Barbara, you always say you want to give people hope. And we call it helping others pursue entrepreneurship, but it's not just entrepreneurship. And in the scheme of things, even with this conversation, Barbara, you took it to another level with helping others pursue eternity, right? Was that eternity?
Yeah, exactly. Because, ultimately this world is not our home. We're not going to be here forever. And we don't want to leave this area. And I was speaking at a conference last weekend, and there were a lot of people saying, oh yeah, I have this and I don't have time to deal with all this. And I just don't want to. And I was speaking with one woman, she's probably in her 60s, owns a business. And I said to her, do you have children? And she said, yes. And I said, so when you leave this earth, do you want to leave this for in her case, 2 sons? She said, no, not really. And that reinforced for me that all of us, myself included, it's far easier to be responsible to someone else than it is to ourselves. Mm-hmm. So whether this is a messy desk, in fact, when I first started in organizing, people used to call me in to organize the house, and they would start wanting me to clean up the kids first. And I would say, show me where you work, show me your bedroom. And it was always a mess. And I said, you have no right to tell your children to clean up their mess as long as you have this mess. And I would not allow them to touch their spouses or their children as my client until we cleaned up theirs first.
Wow. Wow. I know we're almost out of time, but I have a couple more things I want to share, if it's okay with you, Barbara. Sure. I just want to first of all, point out Mitzi says, I agree, younger generations will regret not keeping anything. Yeah, the pendulum has swung. And so there is a balance in between. So a couple things. First of all, I want to share, if you are new to this channel, if you're watching us on YouTube, Please like our channel and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss our podcasts. And if you're wondering how productive your environment is, we invite you to get your productive environment score. So go to productiveenvironmentscore.com. That's a way that you can connect with us, and you'll get your score and see how productive your environment is. And lastly, before I tell one more story, Barbara, that I don't know if you'll remember it or not, but it involves you. If you are listening to this and you're like, I want to do that, I want to help people do this, then go to becomeaspecialist.com and you can watch a webinar about what our program is that we teach our consultants. We have a team of certified productive environment specialists. So if this is resonating with you, go check that out. But Barbara, I want to share another thing. We were talking about the environment in this situation, but there are so many other ramifications that can come, or consequences that can come from clutter, right? I have a friend who years ago, I think I had it was early on in my time with you in our days. And you came to Carolina Beach to visit me. And I said, hey, could you come and speak to a group of my friends about, organization? So this was years and years ago. Anyway, so you came over to one of my friends' homes, and we actually did two, but we went to this one, and she was talking about how much the clutter was impacting her marriage. She had half-started projects everywhere. She had 2 children and a husband, and she was ADD, so she had things all over the place. Clothes, laundry, half-started projects, and she was talking about how it was impacting her marriage. Her husband was not happy with it, and it was just a point of contention, a constant contention. And I remember when you went into the pantry and you found a bunch of bags, like grocery bags, which I personally keep and use because I have 2 dogs, so they're easy for me to use to pick up stuff outside. But she had a mound of them, and you said, what is all this? And she said, oh, it's blah blah blah. And she wasn't using them, obviously, because she had so many. And you said, or do you use them? She said no. And you said, why don't you throw them away? And she said, well, the environment. And you said, well, if you paid as much of attention to your marriage as you do to the environment, then maybe you wouldn't have so many marriages. I was shocked. I was like, no, you didn't just say that, but you made an impact.
I forgot that one.
Yeah, you said if you would have, and it was so funny because you just come, like, I don't think I could have gotten away with saying that, but you are this, our matriarch, whatever. And so it was so funny, but it made an impact. It really did make. So I want you guys to hear that it is funny, but at the same time, like, if you were keeping things because one day you're going to take it here, or you're going to have the yard sale that you've been planning to have for 3 years, then you're collecting things in your garage for the yard sale, but the yard sale isn't happening. We want to release you of that today. Like you said, Barbara, bless someone else with it. Get it out of your house, get it out of your garage. And if you cannot do that on your own, you're struggling with it, fill out that scorecard, get in touch with us, and there is hope. There absolutely is hope. So that is the last thing. I just want to lastly say that to the client whose pictures I shared, thank you for allowing me to share the pictures. Thank you for allowing me to have that experience with you and to share in that emotional journey. And I just am so excited for her next steps of living her life now, because there's still more work to be done, but what a tremendous release. I got a message from her this morning that that trailer has been taken to the landfill, and she had very mixed feelings about it, but between I think she said relief and anxiety, and it'll settle in, and you did the right thing. I want you to hear that you did the right thing. And so, yeah, together we are better. All right, Barbara, any final words from you?
Well, it is an honor. I'm so happy that Andrea and Demetrius were able to do that. And I literally have goosebumps on my body as I think about it, because I feel very emotional about it, because clutter does impact people's lives and the lives of people around them. Mm-hmm. And so please do not let your clutter keep you from being and doing all that God intended.
Amen. Amen. Thank you for joining us. Share this video with somebody. Share this video with somebody needs this message. So please share this, and please make sure you like and subscribe to our YouTube channel so we can keep spreading the word. All right. And I'm going to end this live stream. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.